Hey guys, Brendan here. Welcome back to The Crawl, and welcome to what is, I guess, the first development log progress update for my Dungeon Crawler RPG that I announced 8 months ago now. Anyway, I have a lot to cover, so I'll just cut to the chase. What you're seeing here is footage of where the game is at right now. In this video, we'll be going over the progress I've made so far. I'll give you an early overview of what the game actually is, discuss some major challenges I've had, and then briefly touch on what's next. So this game is being made in RPG Maker using the MV3D plugin by Qt. I'll leave a link to that down below. I know RPG Maker has a bit of a reputation in the indie game development scene, but here's why I went with RPG Maker. So the very first day of 2021, our house got broken into, and the iPad that I used to do basically all of my digital art was one of the items that was stolen. And so I took a few days off, tried to reassess and figure out, okay, how am I going to get back to this? And I knew I'd have to replace my iPad, but I figured I can keep working on the game. And then, a few days later, when I was working on the game, my PC crashed, and I lost several months worth of work. So anything that I even had backed up from my iPad was pretty much gone, with the exception of some of the environmental textures that you're seeing in the levels here. I had planned to make it in Unity, but ultimately I decided that I did not want to go through all that work again, and so I set out looking for a solution, and I found this. Plugin, MV3D, and I decided, all right, I'm going to go with RPG Maker. So that had some benefit, actually. I know people often think of RPG Maker games as, well, a little bit simple, and maybe they all kind of look the same. But, using RPG Maker's built-in assets, the third-party plugins available for the program, and some of my own scripting, it's helped me to rebuild the game in just a few weeks. And now I'm much further than I was before losing the project, and in much less time. So let's go over some of that progress. I'm not really ready to reveal too much yet, but here are some general gameplay elements you can expect from this game. So traditional dungeon crawlers have a single menu-based town where you do everything, and this game will have that. What you're seeing here is a little bit outdated, but I still have a lot of work to do on that. However, also like traditional dungeon crawlers, the game has interconnected maze-like dungeon floors. These are all functionally complete, and they can be explored. You can fight monsters in them. They need a lot of visuals added in and a lot of polishing. I also need to add more traps and other events, but the basic mechanics are done. You can explore the entirety of this game. In fact, you can fight all of the monsters in this game and go from the town to the end boss, buying pretty much all the gear, all of the loot in the game, but it just doesn't look like much right now. Which I should say, yes, the game will be using turn-based combat with random encounters. This is something that I actually ended up scaling back a bit compared to the original version of the project. I cut the dungeon floors down, I cut the enemy list considerably. There's only one party member in the game, but that means that this stuff is pretty quick to build. I'm going with traditional JRPG combat, kind of like what you would find in the original Dragon Quest or even like Pokemon, but there are some wrinkles that I've introduced that I'll discuss in the future. Not ready to fully reveal it, but the final product, I assure you, will look quite a bit different. And yeah, as I mentioned before, all the monsters, NPCs, skills, loot, equipment, enemy behaviors, that's all functionally complete. The stats, the numbers, they're all in there. I need to balance and polish, and I need to make some art, and associated lore and whatnot need to be added to the game, but the stuff that you're interacting with in terms of the data for it, it's all there. And yeah, so overall, I'm sticking with traditional dungeon crawler elements. Games I've been using as main inspirations have been, like I mentioned, the original Dragon Quest, Shining in the Darkness, which is a first-person dungeon crawler that was on the Sega Genesis, and it was the first game in the Shining series, so if you ever played Shining Force, that's what started it all. And then another game called Biomotor Unitron that I'm not sure many people probably know about these days. It's an old Pokemon clone that was on the Neo Geo Pocket Color, where you would explore randomized dungeons with a customizable mech rather than a Pokemon. It was pretty cool. Going back and playing it today, it's a little bit archaic, but I did for some research for this game, and it holds up okay. I won't be having randomized dungeons, I should mention it. They are going to be completely bespoke and mapped out. And as you can probably tell, I have like a very early version of some sort of auto-mapping mini-map in there that may or may not make it into the final cut. We'll see. I have some other stuff I'm trying out there. But anyway, So that's what the gameplay is so far. As for the art, so this is something else that I've scaled back considerably. It was the one part of the game that I was the most excited about, but I've kind of changed my plans on it. Originally, I wanted to do illustrations for all of the enemies, all the characters and portraits, every item, icon in the game, and using a illustrated art style like I did for Super Mutant Slayers, which is a tabletop game I made that I completely drew, did all the graphic design for, laid out every card, but that took years. And after losing this project, I decided to pivot to a much simpler art style to save myself a whole lot of time. I'm likely going to target either an 8 or 16-bit pixel art style, or I'm going to go for some very simplified doodle-like illustrations, which hopefully will make this art phase a lot easier, because frankly, after the setbacks I had, I was having some really severe art block, and changing to a different style has actually given me a lot of excitement, got me interested in the game again, and has me looking forward to trying something out that's new. That said, it's something that I have to learn a little bit too. So it's taken me a little bit of time to get there, but I'm hoping that in the next video or two, I'll have a lot more to share. Then as far as the story goes, which if you saw my original videos kind of announcing that I was making this game, you know that I'm not a huge story guy, and that I specifically chose a game like this to allow myself a little bit more narrative freedom. I would not expect anything like big cutscenes or anything like that. Dungeon crawlers are not necessarily known for their story, especially games like Etrian Odyssey. So even though my day job is as a writer, I write about video games and technology, go figure. I'm not planning on writing some epic narrative here, but I do have quite a bit of the story figured out. I'm not ready to reveal the story or the setting, but the general scenario and the lore, it's all written. There's even several in-game events already plotted out. Some of them are even in the game already. And, as I mentioned in those original videos, instead of a fantasy setting, I will be going for a sci-fi setting. I am visually and narratively trying to go for a much more lighthearted tone. It's not going to be goofy or saccharine, but I'm definitely not doing like dark sci-fi or fantasy. If I had to make a comparison of what I've done so far and the game that I am envisioning in my head, I think you could point to Mega Man or the Bomberman series as maybe some points of comparison. But again, I'm going for my own thing, and I'm not trying to recreate either of those games or really any game's style, tone, or aesthetic. I have an idea for a world and a story that is uniquely mine, at least I hope so, and I'm excited to explore that in this game. So anyway, that's pretty much where the game is now. I know that was a pretty general overview, but I plan to do a lot more in-depth, detailed breakdowns of the game's mechanics in the coming weeks and months. My plan right now is to make more frequent video updates like this to showcase my progress more consistently, both for you and for myself. And I want to do smaller, more focused videos rather than big info dumps like this, posting every 2 to 3 weeks or so, but I'm not going to commit to anything right here. I do have a day job and other responsibilities that make making the game difficult sometimes, but also just making these videos difficult. But, also, I recently did that video on Final Fantasy XI. I have other games that I play that I'd like to talk about in between these development updates too. So yeah, be sure to subscribe and catch all that. And you know what? I'd love to hear your feedback on what I've shown of the game so far. So please comment down below, or hit me up on Twitter or on Instagram. I do have a Discord server for this channel, and it's admittedly been kind of quiet there while I've been working on rebuilding the game these past few months, but feel free to hit me up there as well. Anyways, folks, that's all for now. I will see you again soon with another video.